Hi, I'm David.
Hi, I'm Yelena.
Welcome to our, what is it, a talk?
On the mat?
On the mat. Talk on the mat, yeah. And we're going to talk about practice. But first, this is Connie. If you've watched some of our other YouTube stuff, you've met Connie before. And
This little guy is our newest member of the family. This is Goku. Goku, come say hi. Come, Goku. Nope. Goku is a rescue that we found on the streets of India, and he's made his way all the way here.
yeah, he's a very expensive mutt because he's traveled so far. Yeah, and he was a runt when we found him. He's named Goku after the neighborhood Gokulam, which is where we stay when we go to Mysore to practice with our teacher. Yeah. So hopefully you'll be in some of the videos, but this is his first time showing up. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to just be chatting today, and some people have written in asking about, one, like what are the rules, the dogma around practice, and then two, how to approach practice. They're two separate questions, but we can kind of put them together for this talk.
And just before we go on, remember that if you like this, you enjoy these videos, make sure to like, make sure to comment, follow.
No, subscribe.
And subscribe, yeah.
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
All right. So let's talk. So I mentioned Mysore. This is where all this information is going to come from about dogma, and I use dogma in its positive sense, like the rules around what we're doing, the structure. So in Ashtanga, this particular practice, we want to do 6 days a week. Okay, so usually 1 day off per rest day, and that is Sunday in Mysore. So our practice cycle goes Monday to Saturday, and then we also take moon days off. Moon days are the day of the full or the new moon. So you end up usually practicing 6 days, 5 days, 6 days, 5 days, unless the moon day falls on your rest day, which is terrible. It's the worst, yeah. Because then you go 6 days, 6 days, 6 days, right?
Because after a while, you'll begin to notice that your whole
social calendar
revolves around the moon days, because you have those mornings off. And so that means the night before can be a little bit more relaxed, less kind of discipline, and when you go to bed and whatever else you do. So moon days are very, very important.
Yeah, they're to be treasured. So yeah, it's kind of 6 days a week could sound extreme, I guess, to if you're dabbling in yoga or weekend warrior. But there's a reason that we want to do the practice 6 days a week, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. When we do our practice, we always do the same thing. So it's a very structured sequence of postures, starting with sun salutations, and then these standing poses called the fundamental asanas, and then primary, intermediate, or one of the advanced sequences,
depending on which day it is and what it is that you practice.
Yeah, but basically always the same thing. And some days you don't have that much time, or you're tired or whatever. So on those days, if you do less, you still do the same thing, you just don't go as far. So the repetition of doing the same thing is also an important part of our practice. So Ashtangis don't consider their yoga to be kind of a creative endeavor, right? We're not making up a flow or a series or addressing whatever we think is going on one day with one sequence of asanas, and ideally that's not what we're doing.
So the structure of it is important, and it becomes like this daily check-in. That's how I sometimes describe the practice to someone that's newer. So having committed to practicing 6 times a week or 5 times if the moon day falls, provides you with this like a base from which you over time are able to watch what is happening within you. And when I say within you, I mean physically, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, however you want to think about this. But because we are doing the same thing every day, because we don't get to choose which asanas we do, but rather that's given to us, that starts to create this space for us to see what is happening. And over time, we learn to just watch, to just observe it without any judgments. And when judgments do show up, we're aware of that and we can acknowledge, oh, it's a judgy mind. So the structure of it is really important part of practicing freedom within the practice, or finding freedom within the practice.
Yeah, a lot of you might be watching the videos for alignment techniques on asana, and which is good. We provide those because we want everyone to be safe, and we also want to pass on the teaching of Ashtanga, the traditional coordinates and things like that. But because it's yoga, it's not just exercise, right? It is about purifying your body, keeping your body strong and healthy, healing your body. But because it's yoga, it's also about stilling the mind. The idea is, or controlling the mind. The idea is that we identify with the fluctuations in our mind, the different thoughts and feelings that are constantly coming and going. And what we're trying to do with a yoga practice is find the still point within ourselves that isn't changing with these fluctuations. We call them vrittis. And so by doing the same thing again and again for a long period of time, you begin to strengthen your identification with that still point. And over time, it becomes such a refuge in your life where you can see all these different changes that are happening to you every day. And it's not like yoga will change those things. Everyone's still going to get angry or upset or whatever, or happy. But we do gain this other ability to have a perspective, to hold a perspective, even just for the time that we're on the mat, that can give us so much space in our lives. It takes us out from underneath the weight of all the stuff that's happening that day.
The other way that I sometimes think about it is I use Tara Brach's words of we learn to kind of find this sacred pause. And just even our time on our mat overall in a day can seem like that sacred time when you press pause, you slow down, you commit to observing and watching. And then in time, what you notice is that you become aware of your habits, of your patterns, the way you react to things without really processing. And then maybe with practice and learning to slow down, take these few breaths, you learn how to respond to things a little bit more mindfully. That comes from a place of calm rather than sometimes. Sometimes. I'm saying sometimes.
We live with each other, so we can't we can't make false claims to having achieved any kind of equanimity.
Yeah, well, but that's a whole different story. But you begin to create this space no matter what. There's a space that starts to develop.
Yeah, I think even the effort of reaching for that space or trying to have it in your life has an impact, even just in the moment,
And so all of this sounds really nice, but it can also be very overwhelming if you're new or you're trying to cultivate a 6 days a week practice. So how do you do that? Well, one, don't overwhelm yourself by assuming that the only correct way for this is for you to start with 6 days right away. One of the things that we always suggest to our students is that if you're having really hard time, there's 2 things you can do. Do less, so that you step on your mat and you're there for 15, 20 minutes, but you do it every day. And then you slowly build that habit. You start to build things around in your life that will support that. Or secondly, you can start by committing to 2 or 3 times a week and then gradually increase by adding a day every week or every 2 weeks or whatever works out for you.
Yeah. No matter what, it's difficult to put something in your life that hasn't been in there. So most people don't just decide and then it happens. Usually we might decide and then it doesn't happen. So we just have to kind of constantly, keep trying, pick ourselves up, try again. Over time, you will build up to a steady practice. What I will say is that there's a huge difference between a steady daily practice and an intermittent practice. The intermittent practice is usually as a result of the vrittis, right, of the fluctuations that are happening in the mind. So if we can make our practice a priority, it can help start to control those vrittis. But the other thing that happens is that when we try really hard to do something, we put a lot of investment, emotional, physical investment into it, and that can create vrittis too. We can push too hard, basically, and that isn't a balanced state either. That'll come with its own problems. So yoga tells us that we need to have effort. Effort is practice. Effort to still the mind. That's what practice is defined as. But we also need non-attachment. We have to balance effort and non-attachment for yoga to happen. Connie's checking out.
He's like, I'm over this.
He's like, yeah, I got it. I know it. So there's this other aspect of us. We don't want to sacrifice our peace of mind, for pushing too hard. It's such a careful, impossible balance. But it's important for us to understand that too, that if we show up every day and practice for an hour and a half, but it's making us angry, this isn't the goal. This isn't what we're trying to do either.
And it's not sustainable either. It's not going to last a long time.
I've seen it last for quite a while, but no, it never lasts forever. And then it also physically, it doesn't work that way either. You can imagine if you're pushing your body, pushing as hard as you can all the time, most of us are going to reach a breaking point. So we have to manifest that non-attachment in our practice as well. We have to embody it with a light approach. So I always say you need to hold dogma very lightly. We want to follow it, we want to use it, but we also want to try to stay calm, stay centered while we're practicing it.
Your mindfulness practice should be this balance between effort and loving kindness. You should be cultivating both at the same time. And that's basically what David was talking about, because it's sometimes easy to, turn only towards the discipline, but if it's done with a lot of pushing, it can bring up a lot of resentment. And this is why it's important for us, on the other hand, to be able to hold it lightly, to be able to hold ourselves with kindness and with love. So the two have to be cultivated at the same time. They're equally important in order for us to be able to really practice non-attachment, which you can think of as radical acceptance. So you show up on your mat, you give it your all, whatever that means for that day, and then you also radically accept whatever's coming up with this love and kindness that you bring to your practice as well.
So if you're interested in starting an Ashtanga practice, we do have a 30-day program, an introduction that you can do over a year. You don't have to do it in 30 days. And you'll find it on our website. We also have a bunch of videos here on YouTube that you could just start practicing daily. We have a beginner's class that you should be able to start right away, and you can just do it as often as you can. But when you start, think to yourself, okay, I'm going to try to do 6 days a week, and I'm going to have this day as my rest day. Start with that structure, and if you don't meet it, that's okay. You have next week, you can try again. And then check your calendar, see when the moon day is. See if you can put the moon day into your cycle as well. Okay, we're here to support you and to support your practice. That's what we're for. So let us know what you think. Let us know if you have any questions. Make sure to subscribe.
Make sure to let us know how much you love Goku now, too, by commenting.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.